If you've just scrolled eBay and are looking at a used ham radio from a seller in Japan and are looking for a way to convert it to the US band plan, stop. Watch my video first. I'm the kind of guy that'll scroll through a video like this and go right along the bottom and look for an image of somebody opening up a radio because I'm impatient. I want to try and figure out if this needs to get, or if I can do this now. I'll get into the actual process of the conversion of a couple radios, but let's talk about what you're getting into first. Trust me, I'm going to save you a lot of web searching, and if you watch my subsequent videos, much of this is going to focus on the Kenwood TS series for now, but we've got more to come. Hi everyone, this is Tim, N2LCJ. You know, honestly, I figured that maybe a couple people have seen my videos and given it some likes, and I do appreciate that. Well, this morning on eCars on 40 meters, somebody actually wanted to talk to me, to thank me, and tell me that they were impressed with the Heathkit single bander videos that I have done. And I was flattered and touched and decided that maybe it was time to start making videos again. Which brings me to the subject of this video, buying cheap used ham radios from Japan. Now, it's always a long, boring winter here in Buffalo, New York, so like a lot of hams, I cruise eBay for something to do. And well, everyone loves a bargain, right? Lately, I've been noticing a crazy amount of used amateur radios from sellers in Japan. Some tested, some not, some labeled as junk, presumably to weed out the Karens and the Chads, all of them who expect perfection. Chances are, if you're one of them, you're not watching this video anyway. So, the first question I ask myself is, even though it's 25 to 50% of the cost of a used radio in the U.S. market, is it still a bargain? Can I make it work in the U.S. band plan? Why so cheap? Did it catch fire? Is it really junk? Well, over a month's time, I bought 3 of them, all from the same seller, Japan Store Happy, on eBay. These radios each took about 4 business days to arrive in New York once shipped, which is really fast, and they had free shipping. And believe me, these radios are light. All radios came excellently packed, no damage, and I was pretty darn impressed. As you can see, here's 2 of the 3 right in the background. A Kenwood TS790G, which is the U.S. counterpart of the 790A, or I'm sorry, the Japan counterpart, and a TS780, which to my knowledge was never offered in the U.S. market. I'll be doing separate videos on each of those detailing the conversion to the U.S. band plan, but for now let's talk about Japan market radios on eBay in general. What to look for, what to look out for, and what to avoid. Before we talk about that, generally speaking, and I don't profess to know much about the Japanese band plans, at least any more than Googling, which I'm sure you've already done. The Japan uses, or at least did at one time, 144 to 146 megahertz on 2 meters and 430 to 440 megahertz on the 70 centimeter band. That's what most of these radios are initially limited to. As well, many VHF-UHF radios are limited to 10 watts transmit power, which may or may not be an issue for you. I picked up an excellent 30-watt VHF amplifier with a gas-fed preamp for under $50 on my TS790G. I'll show that later because it really is an interesting and ideal mate for this radio. There are also band and power restrictions in the HF band, but generally those program limits will be found on radios made within the last half dozen years or so. That said, if you're looking for a newer radio, used radio regardless of band, I would not buy it directly from Japan and expect it to work like its U.S. counterpart unless you're very well versed in doing so. Usually you can come across a website like mods.dk or some such that can point you in the direction of circuit changes that you need to make to open up the PLL. But sometimes it's not an exact procedure, sometimes the procedure doesn't work, sometimes the EEPROM needs to be reprogrammed in order for it to work. And the internet has almost no info on many of these radios. Let the info that you find dictate the price that you want to pay. Now, from all the research I did, and this applies to HF as well as VHF, UHF radios, the older the radio is, the more likely that you can have an easy time converting it to a US band plan. Sometimes you're able to get it to work with some diode or jumper changes. Some, of course, don't even need that at all. My TS7 or TS930, which I'll show in another video, was plug and play. Now, when you start getting into radios with chip resistors and small components like the TM series tri-banders, things start to get difficult, if not impossible, especially if you have a difficult time soldering microscopic components. Some of these also require EEPROM programming for the circuits. If you're like me and you don't have that kind of equipment as far as programming EEPROMs, don't buy one unless you're certain you can do it. If you have and have done the mods to any certain radio, please feel free to leave comments in the section below, because this will go a long way to helping other people, myself included. The other thing to consider is that any AC powered radio or power supply from Japan will need a step-down transformer to power it on the 100 volts that Japan uses. And as you can see, I've got one with the light on it directly next to my station clock. They're nice because they are maybe $30 on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. Now, many times you'll see these listings, as I mentioned, that the radios are listed as junk. Look carefully at the pictures. A lot of times sellers in Japan may not be proficient in the English language and are simply recycling past listings with new pictures. My TS780 was listed as junk with no power cord and untested, but there it was with a mic and a power cord, and sure enough, looked like it worked. So I bought it. Sometimes you get lucky. In my case, I did. Well, mostly. I'll get into tearing down my TS780 in the next video, and my TS790 after that. One thing of note, if there are no US equivalents to the radio that you're looking at, the chances of you being able to get it functioning on the US band plan are extremely diminished, because these radios weren't initially designed for a world market. So they may or may not require simple changes to the diodes, to the jumpers, whatever, to get them to transmit and receive fully on all frequencies. Lastly, where do these radios come from? You know, how did somebody come to have so much ham radio gear? And, you know, from my limited experience with these radios have had moderate to little use and probably were just fine when shelved. But in some cases, they were probably stacked like cordwood in a container somewhere. I haven't spotted any water damage or any stress components, but the radios that are on the rough side are more the kind of things that you'd see in a radio that was stuck in a shed for a decade. Bad switches, dots on the display, corrosion issues, things needing cleaning, fixable stuff. Look at the pictures very closely, and that'll give you more info than the seller describes. And don't be mistaken, these sellers, by and large, know exactly what they have, both good and bad. So hopefully I've given you some insight into the Japan market ham radios, and you can use that to make an educated decision. More specifics to come in upcoming videos on the TS770, TS780, TS790, and TS930 radios. And let's see what else I'll buy. Until next time, this is N2LCJ. See you on the air.